Fatphobic Family says my daughter's too fat to play basketball, so I make them regret it. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Okay, so for some background, I'm a father of a 9-year-old girl who's my whole world. Her mother and I split up 3 months after her birth when I found out she'd been cheating. Naturally, I got a DNA test and thankfully she was mine. Problem is, her mother doesn't care about her health. She feeds her whatever she wants and even gives her coffee and donuts for breakfast sometimes. It's a mess. I've called CPA and the police in the past for wellness checks, but it's gotten me nowhere. So since she was about 4, she's had a weight issue. Now on to today's story that happened about an hour ago. For our cast today, we have Entitled Kid 1, about 13 or 14, Entitled Kid 2, same age, they honestly look like twins, but definitely brothers, Entitled Mother, Entitled Father, my little girl, and me. So my daughter's aware she's overweight. She's constantly teased at school, so I've made it a habit to visit her at least 3 times a week each week for lunch, as she always asks me to come so she can eat in peace from the bullies. This weekend was her weekend with me, and she's taken a liking to basketball, which I think is great, and she asked me this morning to go to the park down the road in our community to shoot some baskets with her. Of course I say yes, and we go. When we get there, I park and immediately notice 2 kids, Entitled Kid 1 and 2, sitting at one of those park tables, cussing and throwing a basketball back and forth at each other. I pay them no mind and we walk up to the court that isn't being used. I also notice 2 adults, who end up being our entitled parents. They're about mid-30s, sitting on a park bench about 30 feet away, smoking and messing around on their phones. We start shooting and she's having fun when I hear it. "Get the hell off the court, fatso. We were about to use it. You're too fat to play anyways. Look, you can't even make a shot." My daughter is 9 and still learning, mind you. "Yeah, maybe go home and use a treadmill." They both start laughing. Now, they said this with me right in front of them, and I'm ticked. I'm a big guy, about 6'1", 190 pounds. And unlike others, I don't like confrontation, but I'm not scared to engage if necessary. Okay, first off, both you kids, watch your mouths, and don't insult my daughter again. You really think that's okay? Insulting someone on something so sensitive and think it's a laughing matter? Your parents are doing something wrong. That's when the parents who were still at the bench hear me and join in on the fun, for them at least. "Who the heck do you think you are? Why are you yelling at my sweet boys?" "Yeah, you better watch what you say, dude. Your precious boys are standing here insulting my daughter and calling her fat. You two really think that's okay? To insult a child younger than them over something she's already bullied about at school? We're here trying to get some exercise in and play some basketball and just have fun. I don't need to deal with you and your little punk boys insulting her." Entitled Mom looks at me without blinking, like what I just said was the specials at a restaurant. "So, what's wrong with what they said? Look at her. She's fat, isn't she? They're being honest. She shouldn't be here. What the F?" "Yeah, they're doing her a favor. She's just embarrassing herself. I mean, look at her." Then they all start laughing. Literally 2 teens and 2 adults laughing at my little girl while she's standing behind me and trying so hard not to cry. I lost it. "Alright, listen. You two," pointing at the parents, "are trash. So they're being honest and that's okay? Alright, fine. Here's some honesty. Your sons are punk bullies. And I promise you, eventually another kid will stand up for themselves and knock their teeth out. I, as a normal adult, despise bullying. You both are crap parents, thinking what your kids are doing is acceptable." "Watch what you say to my wife and sons. Your daughter is fat. Deal with it." My daughter decides to speak up for herself. "Yeah? And you're a mean man who shouldn't say these things to people." She's crying and I'm ticked and even more upset at this. Watch what I say? Or what, bud? What are you gonna do? You and your perfect little family seem to think that honesty is all right, no matter what form. So I'm telling you, you're all just bullies. And unlike my daughter, I'm an adult, and I won't put up with any more of your crap, especially if you say another word to my daughter. I swear you'll regret it. I was maybe 3 inches from the father's face when I said this. Looking back, maybe I shouldn't have said "you'll regret it," but I was ticked and in protection mode. Entitled Dad just stares at me without moving for about 10 seconds, with me not moving either. We're not leaving. My daughter just wanted to have a fun day at the park, and I won't tolerate another negative word said against her. Test me if you want. Entitled dad and entitled mom look at each other before finally entitled mom scoffs, "Entitled kid 1 and entitled kid 2, let's go, we're going home." They began walking away down the street towards their house. I'm watching them most of the way because I had a feeling they'd say something else. And I was right, sadly. When they're about 100 or so feet down the street, the dad yells, "Have fun with your fat daughter, punk!" And they hurry their walk. I start running after them. I was done and not putting up with this anymore. When I hear my daughter in a calm voice, "Daddy, just let them leave. Now we can play alone." She's smiling now and I can tell she's right. She just wants to have all this be over with. "All right, sweetie, want to play horse?" "Yeah, you go first. And thanks for sticking up for me, Daddy. I'm so sick of bullies." "Always, hon. And I know. Don't worry. Let's just have some fun. I'll always be there to help you when I can." I give her a hug. We had a good time for the next hour shooting hoops and then went home. Thanks for hearing me out, guys, and don't put up with jerks. It's kind of one thing for teenage boys to behave like this. Sadly, that's kind of to be expected. They're all little jerks. But to have the parents reinforce this behavior is just disgusting. They clearly learned it from them. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree after all. I completely agree with our original poster though, that one day some kid's gonna stand up to them and really put them in their place. And it sounds like they need it. People like this just like to push other people's buttons, and then they're surprised when they finally snap. In those situations, I don't even feel bad. The kid had it coming and needed it to happen. Maybe they can learn to treat people with a little more respect than their parents do. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. Entitled kid smashes my keyboard on my brand new PC after his Karen mom made me let him play. I recently bought this PC that cost about $1,500 without counting the monitors and other stuff, and I was very delicate with it. My grandma's birthday was approaching, and since my family and my grandma live in the same city, all the other family members traveled to visit. I love my cousins, except one group. These kids are spoiled. Their mother doesn't care about them, so they developed into bratty and annoying kids. One is about 11, the oldest, and she's the least annoying, but she doesn't care what other people think and always does what she wants. The middle kid is about 8, and he's a crybaby. If we don't let him see our phones or let him play with them, he goes and cries to his mom or my parents. And the third one, about 4 or 5, is always making fun of and picking on the middle kid. He always breaks his toys and snitches on him. Anyways, on to the story. I was chilling in my house playing some Counter-Strike when I hear the door. I hoped it was the good cousins, but it was the trio. In the beginning, we were in the living room talking and telling stories, but after a while they went deeper into the house, also known as my room. First, they annoyed my little brother with his Nintendo Switch. After a while they got bored and went into my room. The first to walk in was the small kid. He immediately sat on my bed that's next to my desk and started watching me play. He asked to play, but I said no as it was too hard for him and he'd die. Then the middle kid walked in and they started arguing over who was going to play first. After a couple matches, they started saying it was their turn, and when I refused, they started picking on each other for fun. At one point, the young one punched the big one who fell into my PC tower and knocked it over. It was very heavy. They got scared and went to tell their parents. The PC was fine, not even a scratch. But then they made up a story about me picking on them and not letting them play, and that I had to let them play. Their mother screamed at me in front of my parents and told me if I made her babies sad again, she'd make sure my computer disappeared. At one point, the small kid was playing and got so mad after dying that he punched my keyboard, knocking a piece of it off. And the mother told me off for being a snitch when I told my parents. They eventually left, and I now have to play with a keyboard with a key sunk lower than the rest. I told my mom to buy a lock for my room, and she agreed. So next time, those little jerks ain't even coming in. I think we all have that one corner of the family that's like this, that when they come around, you just kind of go, ugh, here we go. Sounds like mom really needs to rein those kids in though. They can't be destructive like that in someone else's home. We all know that the crap would hit the fan if the shoe were on the other foot here. But oh no, her entitled babies can of course do no wrong. Maybe instead of the lock on your door, you should be worried about the lock on the front door. Just keep them out of the house in general. I walked out of my coworker's D&D game after they started getting very misogynistic. I, 20-year-old female, have been playing Dungeons & Dragons for a few years now with the same online group. We went on hiatus and I really missed playing, so I started looking for another group. My coworker, 22-year-old male, heard about this and invited me to join a game he just started. It was IRL, which I really wanted to try because I hear it's so much better IRL than online, so I enthusiastically said yes. Well, I showed up to play and the vibes were immediately off. I was the only girl at the table, and definitely the youngest. Everyone else was 22 to 26. They questioned my character choice, saying the group really needed a healer, but I had already chosen a different skill set. For anyone familiar with D&D or fantasy tropes in general, the single girl is always the healer or mother figure, which I wanted to avoid at all costs. After some debate, my coworker shut them down and let me play the character I wanted. I should have walked out right then, but I stuck around to play 2 sessions. They were awful. Every choice I made in character was ignored or questioned. The other players' characters flirted with or harassed my character in every interaction. They barely let me do anything in the game and fought over which character would be able to date mine. In the middle of the second session, one of them asked what my character's bra size was. I stood up and said, "Nope, I'm not gonna take this anymore. You guys have fun," and walked out. Ever since then, they've all been blowing up my phone saying I ruined their game, that I shouldn't have walked out like that. I've blocked most of them because the messages started getting insulting. However, my coworker hasn't really talked to me since, and I feel like I should have tried to resolve the issue in a different way, since I never told the group I was uncomfortable with character romance. Am I the jerk in this situation? Yes, you could have said something before just leaving, and maybe it would have been made a little bit clearer to them that their actions were not at all acceptable, but you shouldn't have to be the one to teach that kind of thing. They're all grown men at this point. A 22 to 26-year-old should already know better than to act that way, regardless of if you're comfortable with it or not. It's just not something you should be doing. You're putting out really weird and creepy vibes, and the fact that they started to insult you after you left kind of shows that you probably made the right decision. I called out my wife for being insanely jealous of my friend's fiance. My wife, 35-year-old female, and I, 36-year-old male, are good friends with another couple. My best friend Matt, 36, and his fiance Rachel, 24. Rachel models and is very attractive. My wife is less conventionally attractive, but I fell in love with her for her humor and good spirit, which I personally find more attractive than good looks. Recently, I've noticed my wife making a lot of comments about Rachel, calling her an airhead and just being kind of mean. When my wife makes these comments in private, I'm able to stand up for Rachel, but when they're made in public, I obviously don't want to embarrass my wife by calling her out. My wife and I went on a trip with Matt and Rachel last week, which we'd been planning for a while and really looking forward to. At dinner one night, my wife made a really mean comment after we started talking about the economy. She remarked, "Don't worry, Rachel, you can join in the conversation once the smart people are done." She was the only one who laughed. I was completely embarrassed, and once we were alone, I told my wife that she'd been really rude, and I was ashamed of her. I told her she needs to stop making nasty comments, and she agreed. However, the next night we all went out to a bar. Rachel was getting a lot of attention from guys there who were sending over drinks. My wife was looking visibly annoyed that she wasn't receiving the same attention, so I tried to lift her spirits by paying for all her drinks and making a fuss of her. One guy came over and said that Rachel looked just like Zendaya. My wife let out a massive laugh and said, "Did you mean to say Whoopi Goldberg?" I turned to my wife and straight up said, "You really are jealous, aren't you?" She looked hurt, but didn't have time to respond as Rachel had left the table in tears. I followed Matt and told Rachel directly that I was so sorry for my wife's words and that I was ashamed of her behavior. When I reunited with my wife, she told me that I was horrible for calling her jealous in front of everyone and embarrassing her. I told her straight up that she was jealous of Rachel, as Rachel's more attractive than her. I realize in hindsight it was a very heavy thing to say, and can see why she would be hurt by it. However, I stand by the fact it was said in anger. Since the trip, Matt messaged me to let me know my wife is no longer welcome at their wedding, and that as a couple, himself and Rachel have decided that they aren't interested in our friendship anymore if my wife is around. Rachel feels as if my wife has bullied her, and has even suggested that some of the comments were racially motivated demotivated. I'm so humiliated, but my wife still insists that I should have backed her. This sounds more like your wife has issues with herself than with Rachel. Rachel being pretty shouldn't be a big deal to her. First off, she's already married. She shouldn't be jealous that Rachel's getting attention from other guys and she isn't. She has a man who gives her all the attention she needs. At least it sounds like our original poster is pretty good to her. It sounds like she's just lashing out because she's not confident in herself. She may also have a problem with Rachel just because she's so much younger. With there being a 12-year difference between Matt and Rachel, I can see where she could maybe have some issues there. But again, love who you love. If that's who you want to be with, then that's who you want to be with. But for your wife to just take these pot shots at her is just shameful. Honestly, I don't blame you for being embarrassed. Jerk friend thinks it's okay to harass women in the street, so I make him walk home. Earlier today, I was driving my friends back home after we worked out. We passed these two girls walking home, and one of my friends rolls down his window and says, "I like how those watermelons jiggle. How about you give the boys a flash?" I instantly got angry when he said that. I pulled around the corner and told him to get out. He thought I was joking, and I wasn't. So he started arguing. He was saying it was just a joke, and he was messing around. Everyone was on his side, saying it wasn't a big deal. At first he said he wasn't getting out, but then I was gonna snatch him out if he didn't. He finally did with no type of physical engagement. He lived the furthest, but I made him walk the rest of the way. Everyone else was still mad at me. I dropped them all off and went on my way. I called the guy I kicked out to make sure he got home safe, and told him to never say anything like that around me ever again. He apologized, but was still mad because he thought me making him walk was going too far. Am I the jerk? No, I'm sorry. I would have done the same thing. It's not okay. It's not a joke. You just straight up harassed a woman that we were driving past. No way he would have stopped in the street and said that to her. He only said it because he was safely in a car and would soon be away down the street and nothing that she could do about it. It's a jerk move no matter what. Yeah, you can walk home. My wife lied to me about our baby's gender. I, 32-year-old male, and my wife, 25, are expecting our first child. I've reacted in ways I'm now questioning and need outside perspective. Background: my childhood was a tumultuous one. Growing up, I always craved a strong male figure in my life. I never had that bond with my father, and always envisioned having it with a son. My wife was aware of this deep-rooted desire. During her first pregnancy appointments, I was on an essential business trip. These trips, though draining, are critical since I'm the only breadwinner, trying to ensure a different life for my child than I had. In my absence, my wife and her adopted mother attended the checkups. Upon my return, she excitedly told me we were having a boy. We invested emotionally and financially. A blue nursery, boy-themed items, even naming him after my late grandfather. However, a chance remark from her mother disclosed we're having a girl. My wife admitted she knew from the beginning but didn't tell me, thinking she was protecting my feelings. I was devastated, feeling the weight of past hurts and fresh betrayals. In my pain, I cleared out the nursery, and in a moment I regret, told her mother she wasn't welcome at upcoming family events, seeing her as part of the deceit. I acted out of deep-seated emotions and past traumas. I love my wife and regret my actions, but I feel lost. Am I the jerk for how I responded? Oh, that's a tough situation to be in, buddy. I'm really sorry that that happened. While your wife's intentions were good, she went about this all wrong. Nothing good could come of this. She wanted to give you what you wanted, but at the end of the day, knew that wasn't gonna be possible. You're gonna find out one way or another soon enough. I don't see why she would go and get your hopes up like that just to have it all taken away. I totally understand why you feel upset, and I think you're totally justified in that. At the end of the day, a big level of trust has been breached, and you're not gonna know if what she says is the truth anymore. And given it was something so serious like this, that just makes it worse. I told my friend that her boyfriend is basically paying her to be his girlfriend. Me, 22-year-old male, and my friend, 25-year-old female, used to work in a company and it fell apart, and as a result, she got fired. Today I was with her and a mutual friend eating dinner at a restaurant, and I tried to pay for her part of dinner because I knew she didn't have any money, and she said she can pay for herself and thanked me for being nice. I commented that was interesting since she didn't get any money because she was jobless. She started talking about her investing in a sugar daddy, and he pays her weekly. I told her, is that a euphemism for being a lady of the night or something? She gasped and called me a jerk, and I told her that's the truth. She got mad and left, and to be honest, I don't think I said something wrong, because as far as I can tell, she's selling her body for money. At the end of the day, that kind of is the transaction that's taking place. Is it something that you should straight up say to her face? Probably not, but she knows what she's doing. She can put whatever spin on it she wants, but that's essentially what it breaks down to. She's just serving one customer instead of many. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, linked at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot, linked in the description as well. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.